Welcome to this edition of Head to Head. I'm your host, Cam McKinney, and this is episode number 356 of the podcast. And on this episode, I'm talking about the Cincinnati Bengals signing wide receivers Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to long-term contract extensions. Over the last year or so, all the talk surrounding the Cincinnati Bengals has been about whether or not they would be able to lock their two-star wide receivers, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, long term, and they have proved a lot of people wrong by signing both of them to long-term deals. Jamar Chase gets a 4-year, $161 million deal, 112 of which is fully guaranteed. Higgins also gets 4 years, $115 million, basically getting the first 2 years fully guaranteed. These pass catchers have put up elite numbers. Since joining the NFL in 2021, Jamar Chase has the most touchdown passes with 46. His 395 catches is sixth most in that time span, and his 5,425 receiving yards is third most. And he's coming off of a season where he led the league with 17 touchdown catches, breaking the Bengals franchise record in a single season. When it comes to T. Higgins, he is one of the best receivers to have not yet made the Pro Bowl. Last year, he had 10 touchdown catches, and he's the guy that most thought the Bengals would lose, that they would pay Chase, Burrow's former college teammate, over Higgins and let him walk to a team desperate for a star receiver like the New England Patriots. As a fan of New England, that's all the local media has been talking about for the last year is what if the Patriots were able to get T. Higgins and give him a boatload of money to see if he can be their number one receiver. But alas, he remains in Cincinnati, and I've heard all the talk about how the Bengals should be using this money to improve their defense, and that's logical to think that way, but the reality is they needed to do everything and anything to give Joe Burrow what he wants, and what he clearly wants is to have these two elite pass catchers. And there's a reason that wide receivers are getting more money than any other position other than quarterbacks. It's because they are important. The Eagles, the team that just won the Super Bowl, had both A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Last year, Joe Burrow threw for 43 touchdowns, and I still don't think we have seen the best from the young quarterback. Yes, the Bengals need to improve the other aspects of their football team, but it was a must to keep both of these receivers long term. No, the Cincinnati Bengals didn't get any better as a team, but it would have been a problem to lose one of these players. Call me crazy, but when you draft players and they play well, you should want to keep them, even if the price is steep, which it was in this case. The way I thought that this was all going to play out was that they were going to keep Jamar Chase, that they were going to pay him like he was the best receiver in the league, and that they were going to let T. Higgins walk, because let's be honest here for a minute, that's what most teams would have done. They would have said, we know Joe Burrow needs Jamar Chase. We're not so sure he also needs T. Higgins. And to me, it's like, why have a 26-year-old receiver sign elsewhere and end up having their best seasons with another team? The Bengals didn't want to turn one of their strengths as a football team, their receiving core, into a weakness. And this is something that I don't think is getting talked about enough when it comes to these two signing. This gets rid of a major distraction. Like I said earlier, all last season, we were talking about the upcoming contracts of Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and we weren't talking about the Cincinnati Bengals as a football team. I mean, the Bengals were close to being a playoff team. And I am someone who is not a fan of Jamar Chase saying that he could have made any catch if given the opportunity to do so. I think it was becoming a distraction that these two players were not signed long term, but I also admit that the Bengals should sign them long term. I'm not saying that Jamar Chase shouldn't be on the Bengals. I'm not saying that T. Higgins shouldn't be on the Bengals. I am saying they needed to solve this issue, and I'm glad that they did. You can now build around this trio of offensive explosive players for the next 4 years. And this is the great thing about sports is people are right now having this debate. Should the Bengals be spending this money elsewhere? Should they keep both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins? Well, we are about to find out. If the Bengals have a great span of success over the next 4 years, then clearly they were right, and I'm right to feel good about these signings. But if they continue to be a middling football team that just misses the playoffs, then maybe I'm going to change my tune about the whole situation. I, from the jump, thought it was in the Bengals' best interest to sign both of these players to long-term deals. A lot of the reaction to these signings has been about the cap space and asking the question, should the Bengals want to give this much of their cap space to two players? And that's interesting to talk about, I guess, but I'm also here just asking the question, instead of caring about the cap, shouldn't they care about putting together the most entertaining product on the football field every Sunday? I mean, I like watching Jamar Chase play the sport of football and make insane catches, and I feel the exact same way about T. Higgins. And this is coming from a Patriots fan who hasn't had a star receiver on his football team since Julian Edelman played for the Patriots. That's what I'm missing out on. That's why I'm like, how can you guys be upset that the Bengals kept their 2-star receivers when my team has 0-star receivers? Great offense does sell, and it makes for a more interesting product. I don't know that the Bengals are now going to emerge as a 12-plus win team next season. I have high hopes because of Joe Burrow, because of Jamar Chase, and because of T. Higgins. Talking more about Joe Burrow, I am of the belief that he is at some point going to become the face of the league. I mean, I think the league needs a quarterback like that who is as interesting off the field as he is on it. I mean, he's uber confident. Every interview I see with him is fantastic. The guy's already been to a Super Bowl with the Cincinnati Bengals. I think Super Bowls and MVP awards are in this man's future. And I heard what Fox Sports 1's Nick Wright had to say about the Bengals signing these two players. He said, shouldn't the Bengals move on from one of them because they have Joe Burrow and he shouldn't need that much help to win football games? And I understand that line of thinking because you see what guys like Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen have accomplished after they lost a star receiver. And I think at some point Joe Burrow is going to get to a point where he's not going to need both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I just don't think we're there yet, especially when you look at the rest of the roster that the Cincinnati Bengals have. That's a team that needs as many difference makers as they can possibly have. And for me, the only justifiable reason to lose out on T. Higgins would be that T. Higgins does not want to be a member of the Cincinnati Bengals. It should never have been about the money. It should be about wanting to have talented players. And if those talented players want to stay with your organization, then you should want to keep them. So on one side of the coin, you have people saying that the Bengals are overpaying for these two receivers. And then on the other side of the coin, you have people saying that T. Higgins would have gotten way more money if he had ever become a free agent, that he would have been one of those guys who got a long-term mega deal with a team like the Patriots. I've heard the T. Higgins deal be described as team-friendly. This is what I personally keep going back to, is this idea that for as good as these two players have been, you just eliminated a huge distraction. Now next season will not be about give me the ball because I'm Jamar Chase and I want to get paid, or give me the ball because I'm T. Higgins and I want to get paid, or now T. Higgins won't be upset that you keep franchising him. He has decided to stay with you long term. Jamar Chase has decided to stay with you long term. Now they're just going to quietly put up the same massive numbers without the distraction, without all the talking, and I think for that, the Cincinnati Bengals will be a much better football team because it will get back to being just all about football. Your three best players are locked up long term. You got rid of all the wide receiver diva nonsense. You've already gone through it. Now you have these three guys, and I think these three guys now want to prove that they can be part of a winning team once again. That's why I find some of this mixed reaction to these signings to be ridiculous. I mean, we are talking about a quarterback with these two receivers who went to the Super Bowl in 2022, who beat Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs. One of the things I really need to stop with the Cincinnati Bengals is them getting off to these ridiculously slow starts. I mean, that's what really hampers them from being viewed as one of the best teams in the AFC. It's the thing that kept them out of the playoffs. I mean, they get off to these slow starts and then they start to become a functional football team. Next season, the pressure is all off of these players and is squarely on head coach Zach Taylor. He's been to a Super Bowl, but now it's time to get back to your winning ways. I mean, the Bengals have to be a playoff team or they will get rid of Zach Taylor as their head coach. When I was growing up, the Cincinnati Bengals had a great wide receiver duo in Chad Johnson, who is now Ocho Cinco, and TJ Hushmanzada, and they were extremely entertaining to watch. I mean, I believe that Chad Johnson should be an NFL Hall of Famer, and Hushmanzada, like T. Higgins, was one of the best number 2 receivers in the league. But back in those days, all the talk about the Cincinnati Bengals had been about the fact that they didn't pay anyone a lot of money. And now here they are giving two of their top players top tier dollars and they are getting overly criticized. And I find that to be maddening because I really do believe that if the Bengals lost T. Higgins to another team, we would be saying, oh, it's the same old Cincinnati Bengals who won't pay a football player real money that they deserve. It's like, what do you want from the Cincinnati Bengals? They are for once doing something outside of the realm of what they normally do. They are taking a chance here by paying both of these guys, and they are saying, we believe in Joe Burrow, we believe in Jamar Chase, we believe in T. Higgins, we believe in keeping these three players together, and we're willing to pay a huge amount of money to do so. And there are people out there making fun of the Cincinnati Bengals for making this kind of financial decision, the opposite of the financial decisions they usually make. It's a team that went 9-8 and just barely missed the playoffs, and they're making this decision that they believe that they're better than that. And I believe the Bengals are better than that. I think the Bengals are going to be a double-digit victory team next season, and I do predict a playoff berth. And the Bengals are still having contract issues with other players. I mean, they're in a dispute right now with defensive end Trey Hendrickson, who has requested a trade from the team. Yes, so one might say that the Bengals are unevenly paying their offensive players over their defensive ones, but I believe in today's modern NFL that is the way to go. For as good as the Eagles were defensively during the Super Bowl, I believe they won the Super Bowl because of their offensive talent that they surrounded Jalen Hurts with, Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, and Devontae Smith. Tom Brady won a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because the Buccaneers had Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Yes, you have to be a respectable defensive team to win a Super Bowl, but the teams winning Super Bowls have to be top-tier offensive ones. I feel better about the next 4 years of the Cincinnati Bengals knowing they are going to go into each of those seasons having Joe Burrow, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, who may or may not emerge as the best, Jamar Chase, one of the best receivers in the league, who may or may not emerge as the best, and T. Higgins, arguably the best number 2 receiver in all of football. I am someone who also believes in consistency when it comes to sports. Now the Bengals know they're going to have Joe Burrow, who is going to throw 35 to 40 touchdowns a season. They're going to have Jamar Chase, a double-digit touchdown machine, and T. Higgins, who is also capable of having double-digit touchdowns. You know what you're going to get out of those three guys. There's no question marks there. And all three of them are in their prime. Joe Burrow is only 28 years old. Jamar Chase is 25 years old. And T. Higgins is 26 years old. Their best football is ahead of them. And call me crazy, I really like their chances next year in the AFC North. Baltimore, I think, is going to take a step back. Yes, Lamar Jackson is unhuman. He's going to continue to have MVP-like seasons. I don't know how to feel about the Ravens long term. And Cleveland and Pittsburgh are teams that have potential of being good teams, but they are without great quarterback play. I mean, the Steelers might just bring back Russell Wilson, who is good with Pittsburgh, but I don't think that's better than having Joe Burrow. Do you? Winning the division is definitely in play for the Cincinnati Bengals. So I do in a way see this as a bit of a risk for the Bengals to pay both of these players, but how risky is it really? I mean, let's just look at it. What if the Bengals continue to be a team that just barely misses out on the playoffs? Then if they wanted to, they could trade one of these receivers. I mean, who's not going to want T. Higgins if the Bengals are bad, but he's still putting up stellar numbers? I mean, it's not like the rest of the NFL would not trade for a guy like T. Higgins. So if it doesn't work out for them, they could always move on. And I've heard everyone talk about how they don't like what the Bengals' plan A was, which was signing Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to long-term deals. What should have been plan A? You haven't given me another plan. What should the Bengals have done instead of sign these two elite receivers? Nobody has given me the names of the defensive players that wanted to sign with the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, no one has given me another strategy that the Bengals should have gone with. I look at it and go, this was the only way that it could have and should have gone for the Cincinnati Bengals. If they traded away T. Higgins, two things would have happened. One of them is the team would have backtracked offensively. I don't think they would find another number two receiver who would be even half as good as T. Higgins. And the other thing is Joe Burrow would have become extremely upset that you just lost him one of his best weapons on offense. And it would have also made the Bengals a very predictable team on offense because it would just be Burrow forcing the ball to Jamar Chase, and that's not good for anybody. What the Bengals are likely going to do is build their defense through the draft. I mean, they're pretty much set on offense with Burrow and these two wide receivers. Now they can look elsewhere to improve their defense. They can make trades. I would argue it would be harder to replace T. Higgins than to build up a good enough defense for the Bengals to be a playoff team. Getting the Jamar Chases and the T. Higgins is the hard part. Man, I really did think both of them signing with the Bengals would be viewed as a victory lap. Like, what are we talking about, people? This is the Cincinnati Bengals, a team that never pays anyone, and they've paid their franchise quarterback and his two weapons. I'll end on this. If I were a fan of the Cincinnati Bengals, I would be happy because they did exactly what I, a fan, would want my team to do, which is to keep my talented players on the roster. That's all you can ask for. I mean, just don't let T. Higgins go. Because let's be real here for a minute. They were never going to win a T. Higgins trade. These signings now make me want to root for the Cincinnati Bengals next season because I think there are too many teams in the NFL that would have kept either one. They would have paid Jamar Chase and let T. Higgins walk. And there's really no excuse to do that other than financial ones. I don't think there was a better option out there for the Cincinnati Bengals than to pay T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. They did what was best for their football team moving forward. They did what's best for their young quarterback, Joe Burrow, moving forward. As you can tell by how I'm talking about them on this very podcast, I do believe that the Bengals are going to emerge next season as one of the best teams in the AFC. But I will say this, maybe there is a part of me that is getting way too overhyped about their offense, because football is more than offense. But then again, on paper, I just see the names Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, and I get excited, and I think that having those free players leads to winning football games. And I don't know, maybe when you have those elite players on offense, you can now put all of your energy in trying to make your defensive side of the ball a lot better. Yes, the Cincinnati Bengals are too one-sided of a football team, and it's all on the offensive side. But what other options did they have? This is the only path they could go down. They needed to keep both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and that's exactly what they did, and I believe in the next 4 years they will be proven right. Thanks for listening to this edition of Head to Head. I'm Cam McKinney, and there'll be a new episode of the podcast every Monday on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, so please rate, review, and subscribe.